ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest, Mr. Bharat Shah of ASK Investment Managers. Bharat Shah brings him with him at close to 3 decades of investing experience in the Indian equity markets. He's a veteran in this space, and he has seen a lot of cycles. But I'm sure this one's really unique in its own way, and its challenges are unique in its own ways. So, Bharat bhai, Gujarati mein kahavat hai, "Ave su," which means now what? So that's, I think, what most investors are asking. And we're very fortunate to have you answer few of the questions that we've collected from investors, and which we also had in our mind. So the first question to you is, Bharat bhai, in this in the second wave of COVID-19, okay, is this a chance to probably build a portfolio, as you've seen that the correction is not as stark as it was last time, or this is a time where people should just focus on their health, and wealth can be taken care at certain point in time ahead? And what are your first thoughts on the market right now for an investor?
So to both the questions, let me first deal with the first question. What now?
Right.
That was the first question. So let me answer it in 3 or 4 parts.
Sure, Bharat bhai.
First and foremost, the character of the markets. It is the nature of the markets to be volatile. It is the character of markets to fluctuate. And no matter what you do, there is practically little that you can do to control that. So that's a given, and you just have to accept it as it is, rather than have an illusion that you can do something about it. We cannot do anything about market volatility. It was there 2 centuries back. It was there last century. It was there in last decade. It is there last year. It is there today. And it will be there tomorrow as well.
Right.
What is far more important issue is how we deal with the volatility, how we deal with these issues in our own mind. If we allow volatility, which is outside us in the markets, if we allow that external volatility to become our internal volatility, that is our own confusion. And that is where we can end up making wrong steps, or we can create faux pas or blunders. Therefore, not letting external volatility to become internal volatility is the very first important idea. Second, it's very important to realize, so long as you believe that on a long term, in a particular geography, say India, and with your investments that you have in that geography, and you believe that long-term compounding opportunity is intact and nothing has happened on a permanent basis to damage it, breaking a compounding process prematurely or in a temperamental way is a very hurtful idea on a long-term basis. Because with every challenge, every worry, or every new fear, you can go through the same kind of a mindset. You can suddenly get frightened and worried, and therefore end up damaging that compounding process. You can end up fracturing it. And when you fracture that process, that is the worst crime that you can do against your portfolio. So long as you believe on a long-term basis, the opportunity remains intact, if not actually better, then there is nothing which needs to be done about it. So we have to realize that our trigger-happy thoughts, we need to put it in restraint and control if we want to really win the war, rather than seemingly get over a battle. And even that winning a battle is a mental illusion. There is nothing to suggest that when you try to time the market, whether it will succeed or it will fail. It's just that it gives you a feeling that you have done something to deal with the situation, which may or may not be right.
Right.
Third factor, well, if you look at it, even in 2020, when the pandemic first brought its stark reality onto the picture, we had very little idea as to what the enemy was, nature of the disease, how it will play out, what it will entail, what are the challenges, medically, economically, various other factors, socially, how to deal with that enemy. We had practically little idea, and it was a moving enemy, mobile all the time, and we were still evolving and trying to figure out the nature of the enemy. Compared to that, while current number of infections and pandemic seems to have gone to a new orbit in an adverse way. But if you think about it, we relatively have better strength and better clarity to deal with the enemy on all the fronts, medically, economically, socially, and we also have an important solution in form of vaccination, take
Right.
whatever time it takes to achieve what we need to achieve. But the disease is not going to go away. Virus may mutate into new things, and with iterative cycles, virus may keep coming apart. But hopefully, with each round, our ability to deal with the monster will be a lot stronger. So I see this is an issue which is over impacting the mind right now, which is the nature of humanity, because what is immediate and near sounds very, very overbearingly vital and important. But a little bit of a longer term thought, little bit of more measured response will suggest that virus has a role to play. It wants to survive, so it mutates. When it mutates, probably it gets more infective. Therefore, we have seen challenges in form of new bouts of infections in all parts of the world. In India, actually, it has happened relatively much later, I would say. So there
Right.
may be some more, one or two more rounds of infection still lurking at some stage once we get over it. But this is not permanent. This is short term or relatively short term. And what is not permanent should not decide our permanent actions. Secondly, if you look at how businesses have dealt with the challenge and how we as a country, we as an economy, and we as businesses and people and entrepreneurs have dealt with it, I definitely believe in every such challenge, the birth of new opportunities takes place. It's only that it doesn't look that way at that point of time. At that point of time, worries and troubles look dominant and opportunities look distant. And therefore, it is largely the nature of humanity to get overbearingly concerned about immediacy rather than pay attention to more durable long term. And therefore, when I look at all of that, I feel reasonably clear in my mind that while the current challenge is looking significant, number of cases is risen rather sharply. Very little, lot of afterthoughts are circulating right now. But honest part is that how many of us really predicted a month back or a month and a half back that we are likely to be in that situation? So it has happened, but I think it is not beyond our means as an economy, as a society, as people, as businesses, as entrepreneurs. And therefore, even though it sounds dominant, I think we'll get over it. And eventually, that is where we should remain focused on. That will mean final thing that we must remain focused on each business, its nuances, how during this challenge, whether it is improved a little bit or whether it is deteriorated a little bit on a long-term basis. And based on that, we'll have to keep a view on each of those businesses, its value, and therefore our investment action. But at a portfolio level, to say that is a reactionary stance that now suddenly this has happened, so we pull the trigger, will be a perfectly wrong thing to do. And that is what markets kind of ensnare you into doing it.
Right.
Markets are not designed to make you succeed. Markets
Right.
have no obligation to you. And therefore, markets will try its every trick to make you take a false step. It is your duty and your belief and right level of confidence, at the same time due level of caution to deal with the situation without falling into the trap of the markets.
Thank you, Bharat Bhai. And actually, I really like your answer when you said that what is not permanent should not affect, you permanently. So I really like that, approach you have to investing. However, most of my listeners don't have the advantage of your vintage. Okay, so people who are waiting on the sidelines for a while after 2020's rally ki market girega to hum invest karenge. So how should they look at it? And another, this is the second part question again to your answer of, as long as you believe the compounding machine is churning, your story remains intact. So what do you believe is in store for the corporate profitability, given that since last year when we saw that if I track GST collections as a mechanism of business activity, it took almost a year to come back to pre-COVID levels and probably exceed that level. So where do you see corporate profitability going, and what is the kind of hit you feel will be there because of the second wave of corona that is around?
Well, 2-3 things there. One, forecasting is a popular sport in the markets.
Right, right.
And of course, investing is about future. Past is merely a kind of a background light, investing path is always about future. Therefore, it is the job of every investor to make meaningful conjectures about the future. Nobody can get away from that. But we shouldn't get carried away by our own belief about conjectures. We should realize and remain appropriately chastened that while it is our job to make meaningful forecasts, we have a duty to keep chiseling out those forecasts, test them well, remain open to the possibility that our forecasts have a complete chance of going kaput and go belly up, and not to get deterred by this, but to keep refining the craft and to keep improving the game, to improve our forecasting capability a bit better by better every time. That is the game. Investing is not a game of perfect forecasting where it is mathematical, something like efficient market hypothesis suggests, which is more in theory rather than in actual world. So while we have to forecast, it is an essential, important duty cast upon you to be a good investor, to be able to make meaningful forecasts. But we have to remain equally realistic about the fact, humble about the fact that many of our forecasts may go wrong. Some will go badly wrong, and only a few will go adequately right. And those few should be good enough to be able to still get us on the right side of the results and consequences once the dust settles. So that's one. Second, whether profitability on the corporate side, March quarter, in my opinion, will be record ever.
Right.
That number reasonably is hopefully in the bag. And if you recollect, in September 2020 quarter as well as December 2020 quarter, both those quarters compared to previous year, September 19 and December 19 quarters, recorded close to high single digit or a double digit growth in the
Right.
corporate profits. Now, sitting in March or in June 2020, your instinct was more to preserve and to figure out how badly you will not lose. You were not thinking about growth, but September and December 20 still give you growth. While you might have braced yourself for 20% decline or a 30% decline or a 40% decline, very few, almost everybody would have been overlaid with preservation rather than any growth. But we finally delivered a growth. March 21 quarter will reflect even a stronger performance, both on an absolute basis and on a relative basis, because March 20 was affected, and therefore both on a relative basis, but on an absolute basis, in my opinion, March 21 corporate profitability will be a record year. Third, for the year of 21-22, early to make forecast. I may have a view, but that view we shouldn't get unnecessarily carried away by. Given the way pandemic has suddenly unsettled us, there can be some impact at this juncture on the way performance for 21-22 may play out. How large that may be, I cannot really meaningfully quantify. But as it stands today, as it appears today to me, I would be surprised if it is meaningful or substantial impact compared to what one would have thought 21-22 looked like. Therefore, 21-22 in any case will reflect material growth over 2021. But what one had thought before these rise in the pandemic phase 2, what one predicted, maybe there is some impact. At this juncture, I would believe or think that that impact may not be substantial compared to what we thought 21-22 may have looked like. Finally, take into account, there are important changes which have occurred too. I mean, cost of capital has come down.
Right.
That helps businesses, that helps consumption, that helps asset values, and that helps lenders, both in asset quality as well as the growth of lending activity. We, businesses, corporates, entrepreneurs have shown how they've dealt with the challenge. They've revisited business model, they've controlled cost, come up with improved business models to build even such eventualities into the business model and dealt with it. Therefore, businesses have become more strong after witnessing the challenge. Thirdly, the good businesses, some of the inferior businesses may become victim of these change, but the good businesses will actually become stronger and better and faster growing than they had an opportunity earlier. Thirdly, the power of digitization is right before us. Businesses no longer will be completely physical. Businesses don't need to be completely digital. It will be a good combination, a healthy duality of physical and digital that almost all businesses will look like. Some will be more of one and little less of the other, or vice versa, but all businesses will be a healthy combination of the two. The good digitization affords an opportunity to control cost, to scale the business better, to deliver a superior value and customer service, to improve supply chains, to improve the capital efficiency, and all that will stand in good stead on a long-term basis. So we should take into account that very important change that has occurred and which is playing out. Fourth part, I would say, you see, the startup ecosystem in India today is one of the most vibrant ones in the world and is the third largest and probably the most vibrant one today. And I think these robust startup ecosystem doesn't have merely implications for the startup businesses only, but it has also implications for the rest of the economy, rest of the businesses in terms of their character, their capability, and what it will do to them. And I think it will help us in generally strengthening overall economic strengthening ecosystem in a more robust way. Then, many of the businesses have tailwinds coming from this. So insurance businesses, pharmaceutical and healthcare systems, chemical businesses of all kind, active pharmaceutical ingredient, active agrochem ingredient, specialty chemicals. All of these businesses have favorable long-term tailwinds and some more.
Right.
Also, if you take into account PLI scheme, and I think it is a very important new innovation and idea that we've come up with in these pandemic time. I think it will be a lot of fillip to the manufacturing ecosystem over a period of time, where if all things go well, with the some 2.4 trillion rupee of incentive over 5 years,
Right.
incremental output maybe about some 55 trillion 55 trillion kind of an incremental output or so. And that can be a fantastic achievement. So I think, and a lot of reforms which have occurred over a period of time, some more have occurred in last 1 year, all these collectively will, I think, build in a right way for the future. Therefore, I remain very, very positive about that backdrop of strength, solidity in the businesses. Therefore, all of that will mean that we have to take that longer term view into the mind rather than getting carried away by the short term exigencies or challenges, however overpowering they may look.
Right, right. Bharat, I agree with you there. And I completely understand when you say that this time around, a lot of companies and a lot of businesses have a COVID plan to, probably mitigate their business impact. So hopefully things might not be as gray as they would appear. So, Bharat, I have a very interesting question for you. So, a lot of times, often it has been said that building a portfolio is like choosing a cricket team. And when your frontliners, your openers, they get out sooner, and your middle order batsmen should be able to support. The question that I want to link, or the analogy that I want to draw, is we have seen that the growth kind of businesses, the quality businesses or the high valuation businesses have done really well in India over the last 2 years, over the last couple of years. So as a portfolio manager, are you looking now at the other spectrum of valuation, where companies probably like probably ICICI banks of the world, and the names like that, which would have been seen some kind of valuation losses, maybe businesses like Siemens, ACC, Maruti. So do you think these will make a comeback to investors radar, and probably would you include them in your portfolio going ahead?
But I won't like to answer on a specific name whether I
on a broader scheme of things.
You see, to your prelude to your question, portfolio is like a garden.
Right.
And it is a place for all kinds of,
Flowers.
all kinds of flowers and plants. Some are more sturdy, some are more decorative, some are overbearing in terms of productivity and all kinds. But they all must eventually serve the purpose of overall garden, therefore overall character of the portfolio. Overall, what you seek to gain out of investing in totality, each investment within the portfolio and each plant and flower within the portfolio must serve that purpose. Each plant and flower is a purpose, but
Right.
the portfolio overall purpose is the most critical part, and everything happens within the context of that overall portfolio. In the garden, you plant something, you sometimes prune something, at times you weed out something, and all the time, in any case, you keep putting nutrients and water and generally maintaining an upkeep. So maintenance, pruning, refining, beautifying your portfolio is a forever task. It has to be there all the time, COVID or no COVID. So it is no more impact than that broader, relentless improvisation of your portfolio and relentless watch as to what you thought about every name in overall portfolio, whether it is actually unfolding in reality that way or not, and to take appropriate action if you recognize that you got something not so right or something is changing for adverse and you need to recognize that. So that is a forever task and nothing specific to the pandemic. Certainly, thirdly, when you take into account a major impact like a pandemic, and then you have chance to figure out which businesses have been able to respond better to the challenge, which businesses fundamentally have a character which is not easily disrupted. That gives you greater chance to observe and strengthen that part of your portfolio, because that gives you, because you have gone through it firsthand into that exercise, and it has allowed you a chance to observe which businesses per se have a weaker or stronger character to deal with challenges of this kind, and within the ones who have dealt better given the same challenge, there for everybody in that particular segment or in business. Finally, there is a growth and value, or mid cap and small cap and large cap. These are really flirtations of the mind. Uh, Businesses have to grow if they have to create value, and stagnant water pools become dirty and muddied. They don't create value, they in fact smell badly. Therefore, growth is vital, and therefore, without growth, you don't really create rising value. And you want a rising value, you don't want a one-time trick. Equally, the growth has to be purchased at a sensible price, at a price which is representing a modicum of value, so that you have got not only growth as a investment outcome, as a returns, but also that margin of safety is an additional factor. And therefore, you need that value as well. So you need both. The debate about one or the other, to my mind, is a very miscarried and artificial kind of a debate. Equally large, mid, small, these are favorite whipping boys or favorite fashions of the markets. I love large businesses if they are going to create a large value over a period of time. I love mid-sized businesses if they will do similarly and they will grow in a similar fashion or more. And equally for small businesses where that kind of an opportunity you believe exists, and you have good reasons to believe that despite their relative smallness, they really have something special where They should be able to do meaningful results production over a period of time. They deserve attention too. So I don't have any fetish. I don't have any shibboleth that or a fixed idea that now this and now that. Ultimately, we are buying a business with a bundle of attributes. Those attributes are right. They will create value. They will grow, and eventually both will produce returns. If that bundle of attributes is not good enough, then no matter what you do, it will not do what is required. And therefore, it's not something innately about small or mid or large, but it is about the bundle of attributes and the character. And that is the one that we focus on. But time to time, we have found value in the large ones. We have found value and we have continued with them. We continue to find value in some new interesting looking mid-sized businesses, and we can time to time have found value in some small businesses also. And have continued to hold them while they become, some of them may become mid-sized, and some have in fact become larger ones also in the over a 10-year, 15-year journey and some of those investments. So it takes all kinds. I will not put a particular label. I will look for the characteristics, resilience, growth, character of the growth, management quality, business quality, and overall judgment of the value and the margin of safety. And the
Right.
combination of that growth and margin of safety will decide the outcome.
Right. So I understand, and I really like how you put that. Value is only where there is growth is. So that's, I mean, probably I get your point there. So Bharat Bhai, I won't keep you for too long. The last question that I have to ask you before I'll let you go is a lot of I understand a lot of things that are working for in the Indian corporates. The Indian government has done a lot of things during the pandemic, and probably they will shape out. However, it's often said, and I think it's true, that the long term is made up of a lot of short terms. Okay, so in the short term, what are probably the risks and concerns that our economy is probably underplaying, or we as investors could tend to underplay, in your opinion?
No, you're absolutely right. Like John Keynes once famously remarked, in the long run, we all are dead. And therefore, investing always is to struggle with that rude reminder that the long term may remain mythical at times.
Right.
At the same time, investing entails you to make a judgment of the long term, because without that, in any case, you are not in the game. So it's a constant balancing of a series of short terms which make up eventual long term, and the long term, which is an essential attribute of any good long investing person. Secondly, a lot of aspects that we regard as risk, if we knew all about it, then we should all take care of it. But irony is that we only have a tantalizing feel about it. We don't have a certainty about it. We may have a view, but that view may not have solidity. And therefore, all judgments of the risk, known, unknown, knowable, unknowable, and all of them play out, and we have to remain humble to know that we know only so much and not much more than that. So there are known risks. Hopefully, we should have a handle of all of them. There may be unknown ones, but not unknowable ones. So they, time to time, present themselves as unwanted guests. But since they are knowable, you at least have to have a framework to deal with them. The troublesome ones are unknowable ones, because what is unknowable in any case, what can you do about it? I mean,
Right.
only at a portfolio level, at an asset allocation level, you make yourself strong and resilient and balanced, so that you don't carry yourself to any extremity. Maintaining that overall balance rather than getting carried away by what may be popular idea or the popular thing to do at a point of time, creating artificial extremities by our own misjudgments and by our own misactions is actually the greatest risk. But otherwise, the only way you deal with unknowable is by preparing yourself strongly at an asset allocation level,
Right.
as well as at an overall portfolio level, how you build yourself strongly. Once you do that, as it comes, you will play and you'll fight it out. So there are knowns that we hopefully should be dealing with. There should be unknowns, but knowable ones, and that is fine. Unknowable ones, we have to make overall character of our own mind and our own actions strong and resilient. With that, I don't see particularly huge amount of worry. Ultimately, if we knew all the worries, we should have dealt with, and we should never be worried about it at all. But that is never the case. One, because of our own ability to judge everything. No matter how smart you are and how capable you are, you can't. And because there is only so much one knows and only so much one can hopefully get to know. So we have to accept our own limitations and our own modest capability to do and judge everything around. Second is, it is the nature of the world to change and to create a flux. And therefore, we have to have an adaptive mind, a mind which is not bowing before every wind, and therefore too flexible where it loses vibrance or character. At the same time, it is not so rigid that it cannot understand changes and cannot adapt its oneself to the changes. So it's a very judicious balance between conviction as well as concerns.
Right.
You have to have confidence, at the same time have enough worries and mindset to accept that those worries may come by and you have to deal with it. Therefore, judicious combination between confidence and diffidence, between belief as well as doubt, between between conviction and skepticism is a right kind of a mental framework which will allow to deal with the risks better.
Right.
And so long as we have chosen well, we have tested them well, and our mindset remains all the time agile to keep testing and keep judging and keep evaluating and keep accepting our mistakes and refining ourselves, we should be okay. I mean, challenges will come in the markets. If you plot last 30 years, every few years you will find some challenge. And at each stage you will think this is like a finito, this is the end of the world. But it rarely is. And if it is indeed one particular event which is the end of the world, why worry? In any case, we'll be dead. So why worry about it? So very few things are of those kind. Most of the others are imagination of the mind. It is our markets will do what they do. We cannot have excuses that markets did this or markets did that. We have to, markets are what they are. We have to bow before them, respectfully accept their behavior. We have to modify and strengthen our behavior. All that is lying within us, not with the markets.
Like you said, external and internal volatility. Right.
That's
I
right.
understand. Right. So, Bharat bhai, with that, my set of questions are over. So, if you want to say anything to the investor that you think has not been spoken yet, so, over to you. And if you've
No, nothing much. Just a little bit of summary of what I said.
right, please.
Markets are what they are, and we have to respectfully accept market behavior. We shouldn't let market behavior become our internal behavioral pattern. When we do that, we end up making mistakes.
Right.
Equally, investing is not short term. Equally, investing is always and have always been long term. It is our confusion of the mind that we time to time we believe now it is this and now it is that. And now in a short run things have changed. Individual businesses do undergo change. Individual contexts and situations do undergo change. But the fundamental philosophy of what works and what is made work it has a far greater longevity lasting over centuries, you know.
Right.
Therefore, it is that we have to pay allegiance to and we have to have a confidence about. And I think as a country, as an economy, however tough it may appear today, the challenge looks very overpowering. But I believe on a long term, we are at a perfect opportunity. As an economy, we have taken number of significant economic reforms over the last 6-7 years. Insolvency, bankruptcy framework, real estate regulation act, GST, one of the mother of the reforms, even demonetization, which has paved the way for the kicking of digital payment and payment ecosystem and greater transparency. Uh, the cleanup of the banks, cleanup of the non-banking lenders from 2018 that has occurred, where bank balance sheets, NBFC balance sheets have been cleaned up of the non-performing assets. If that wouldn't have occurred, we would have been in a very significantly difficult shape today.
Right.
If that wouldn't have occurred in 2018 and 2019. Also, the recent farm reforms which have occurred, though there has been a resistance to it, but I think fundamentally among the most important reforms that have occurred in the agriculture over several decades, labor reforms, the thrust on the privatization, support and nurturing of the entrepreneurship and private capital, where government plays the role of a catalyst and support and umpire, but the game is played by the private segment, I think is a perfect pitch to play. And businesses have also shown that in a tough year like 2020-21 and 21-22 is still unfolding before us, it has just begun. I think I'm proud about the way the country, the people, businesses, entrepreneurs, and indeed governments have played the role in making many things happen. So I believe we are at a vantage point on next decade or two basis, where not only the rate of growth, quality of the rate of growth of economy, sustainability, solidity, predictability, all, in my opinion, have materially been uplifted than before. That will reflect into the character and performance of the businesses, good businesses, not every business. It will also therefore reflect into their profits and cash flow. That in turn will reflect into their values, their intrinsic worth, which in turn will reflect into their stock prices. And when it reflects into enough stock prices, it will reflect into the indices. And therefore, I remain, you say investing teaches you to be skeptical. And 33 years of investing should make me utterly skeptical. But probably more than ever before, I remain very positive about next decade and two, and more about India and its businesses and its investing opportunities.
Thank you so much, Bharat Bhai. To the investors, I'm Sankalp on behalf of PMSCI World. I request you all to stay home, stay safe. Health is important now, like Bharat Bhai said. We have decades of compounding power ahead of us. But for now, the importance, I think, is we all remain healthy and cooperate with the government with their work in mitigating COVID and probably coming out of it, emerging out of it as soon as we can. So thank you, Bharat Bhai. I think you gave very practical answers to my theoretical questions. And I think this. Thank you, Bharat Bhai, so much for your time.
Pleasure talking to you.
Same here, sir.